All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of 1.73 Mission Over Measure. Today we are joined by Joe Mackey. Joe, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. I'd like to start off with just your background a little bit, talking about what you do and how you got there.
Yeah, thank you, Henry and Preston, for having me on the podcast today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my story and chat with you guys. So I grew up, let's go. I was born in a small town, Greenfield, Indiana, and grew up a very big John Cougar Mellencamp fan. Saw him 5 times in concert.
Is
So
that
it
where
is,
he's from?
yeah, oh yeah, he's from Seymour, Indiana, which is just east of Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to college at Indiana University. So he's involved with the university. He's donated a lot of money. There's a field house named after him. He's often, seen at the basketball games, and yeah, he's a participant in the community, which is great. But yeah, I grew up in a small town and was at a high school convocation in 1987. So my junior year in high school, or it could have been, yeah, somewhere around there, whatever. It was like basketball season. And I remember sitting near the top of the bleachers with my knucklehead friends, jacking around, not paying attention to what the principal was saying or really caring what was going on down at the pep rally convocation, whatever. And then all of a sudden, they bring this guy out on the floor, and this guy looks pretty beat up. He's got long hair, he's missing some teeth, he's covered in tattoos, and he gets up to the podium. And for some reason, like, I stopped messing around and I started paying attention. I don't know why this guy captured my attention, but he started to tell his story how he grew up in difficult circumstances, got running with the wrong crowd, dropped out of high school, ended up in a bar fight one night and punched a guy in the face. Guy hit the ground, died. He ended up in prison, right? And while he was in prison, he decided that when he got out, he was going to talk to people about the decisions that he made and how they led to where he ended up, and hopefully help people. And then all this is great, and I'm listening, and he pauses for a minute and he says, take a look at the people around you. Look who you're sitting next to. Look who's in front of you, behind you. And he said, I want you to consider who those people are and who you're sitting with right now. He said, because I'll tell you this right now, you show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And I remember looking around and thinking, man, I got to get the heck out of Greenfield, Indiana. That was like there was my mission, right? And I then applied to, some colleges, ended up getting accepted to Indiana University, got the heck out, and only went back summer after my freshman year. After that, I was done with Greenfield, just stayed in Bloomington, and then graduated, moved to Indianapolis. Crazy thing is, I started in the food service distribution business. So most people have heard of Cisco Food Service. They're the, giant in that industry. They're the big dominant player. So working in that business, moved from Indianapolis to Detroit when I was 27 as part of a corporate fast track program. Hey, if you want to move up, you got to move around. And I was here for 12 months and met my wife. I was only supposed to be here 18 months total. When Jenny and I met, we had that experience of kind of like, oh, there you are, the person I'm supposed to marry. We both said that, which was really, really interesting. Went through the process of letting them know I wasn't going to move, and then ended up working in the local district office and kind of climbing that ladder until uh, late 2001. I came home from work one day and said to my wife, who was pregnant with our second child and had quit working, I said, this is exactly what I don't want to do with the rest of my life. I do not want to be corporate Joe, senior VP or CEO or president or any of that stuff. The higher I climb in the big corporation, the more miserable it is for me, the more politics and red tape and that type of stuff. And that's not who I am. And she's like, well, who are you? I said, well, I don't know, but I'm not that. And I went through some soul searching and started to ask the question, around entrepreneurship. And I said, I think I'm an entrepreneur. I had some experiences in high school where I worked in a pizza place, and the owner of the small town pizza place left me alone to see how I would do. And I really, really enjoyed that. And I improved his operations and sales, and he used to give me bonuses for that. So I kind of went back to that and said, well, I want to do something entrepreneurial. Well, with a wife who didn't work and a young child and a baby on the way, I didn't have the resources to go buy a business. I had three friends that are in the financial services industry say, hey, you should consider doing what I'm doing. I think you'd be really good at it. So I went through the interview process at their companies they worked for, which were big companies. And I said, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. And I don't want to do it with one of these big companies. And then I found an independent firm that had two partners and a handful of employees. A friend introduced me to. I fell in love. And in May of 2002, the week that my second child was born, I made a huge career change and went from food service to financial services and started calling everybody I knew and asking them if I could buy them a cup of coffee and share with them the type of work I was doing now to see if I could be a resource for them. That was 400 people that I met with in that first year.
An overly caffeinated year.
It was.
Several.
Well, considering that I started at this small independent firm with no salary, no experience, I didn't sleep much. So I needed the caffeine. I realized like 6 months in what I had done and how hard this was going to be. And it was going to be way harder than I ever dreamed or thought. I really didn't think it through. I just took the leap, which I look back now and I'm like, had I known, I probably wouldn't have done it. So it was good that I didn't know. And a couple of years in, I had spent all of our savings, all of our investments, home equity line of credit maxed out, and I didn't think we were going to make it because I started out in a fee-based business with a small independent firm, talking to all my friends about something that I just started doing, brand new. But I got so committed and I worked so hard, and I'm not kidding, I literally would work 7 days a week, 15, 16 hours a day, apologizing to Jenny, quit everything else I was involved in and just work and home, and eventually started to get some traction and grab a little momentum. And now almost 23 years later, have built a firm with a younger partner and 13 of us total. And it's awesome. So thankful.
So going from the world of Abe Froman, the sausage king
of the Midwest,
to Warren Buffett.
Yeah, right. Not quite Warren Buffett yet.
Yeah, I love it.
I need a couple more lifetimes, I think, before I get there. But.
Joe, what did people say when you decided to make that move from big corporate food service to small, who knows who these people are, entrepreneurial world?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of different people came to mind. Really close friends that knew me well said, heck yes, that is a great decision. You would be great at that, and do it. On the other side of the fence, the CEO of Cisco Detroit, a guy by the name of Mike Green, wonderful human being, went on to be extremely successful climbing the corporate ladder, in the big corporate down in Houston, Texas, and Cisco. When I announced that I was going to leave and go into financial services at a small independent firm, he was my mentor. And he had specifically been assigned my mentor because I was seen as a future executive, and he was teaching me and training me and pulling me up, right? So he had me in his big, huge CEO office and set me down. And this is not a joke at all. He literally asked me if I wasn't feeling well, if I was sick, if there was some issue that I was experiencing that was messing with my decision-making ability. Because in his mind, he couldn't understand how I wouldn't walk the road that was laid out for me that led to a lot of success and wealth, and very much pulled along by him. Like I was in his, fold, and he was going to make me very successful. And I just said, yeah, no, I want to go make no money doing something I've never done before and almost bankrupt my family. I would much prefer that. But he was very, at first, concerned. And then he flipped over to when he realized that I wasn't mentally or physically ill, that this was a conscious decision I was making. Then there was that sense of like, well, you're dumb. Like, this is a bad decision. Stop. Don't make it. And I said, no, this is exactly what I'm going to do. So he was very, very much against it.
How much did that speaker's message about looking around, see who your friends are, and it'll determine your future. Yeah. Did that play, like, did you see that playing out in the corporate world and then see it play out in the financial world? Because to me, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the friends or the culture and the corporate ladder climbing was one of the reasons why you decided to part ways. I could be wrong, but it sounds like that message was kind of built into your decision making, even just a little bit. Do you think it was?
Henry, 100%. That's a really good insight. And I don't think I've put those two things together before. So I'll thank you for that. Because part of the story, I guess I didn't say this when I tell that story. A lot of times I'll say, I looked up and I looked at that executive suite, and they were basically my age now. I just turned 55 in February. So they were in their 50s, and they were working the hardest they've ever worked. They're making an insane amount of money, which is great, right? They're very, very wealthy, but their level of stress and their level of effort are the highest they've ever been. And they're responsible for so much. And in that world, when you have a stock, it's part of the S&P 500, everything is all about the stock price and quarterly earnings, and they're living and dying by that data. And that's very, very stressful. And I thought to myself, while I'm young, I was 32 at the time, I'm like, I want to work that hard now so that when I'm 55, I own something, or I've created something that gives me a lot of freedom. I knew I would always work hard. That's just in my nature. But like right now at 55 and almost 23 years of doing this, I have all the freedom I want. I have a great lifestyle. I still work really hard because I love what I do, but I don't have the stress and the pressure and the have to work hard that they had, that I saw. So yeah, I looked at them and I said, I don't want those friends in that future. I want a different friend future setup. And I tell you, at the ripe old age of 55, that has been one of the truest things that I have consistently seen in my life, whether it comes to health, wealth, it's like you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. There is no question about that. And research shows that too.
I love it, Joe, because you're speaking to, like, there's all these, either there's a size of entity that these folks your former colleagues are accountable to, or there's just a volume of them. Like, there's so many things they're accountable to, or there's this massive thing they're accountable to. I don't imagine that changes, though, when you go from like a big corporate world and career to a small entrepreneurial business. So, like, what are the things you believe you're most accountable to now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, number one, I learned over time that being accountable to my family first is the most important thing. And I missed that. Like, I chose it for a while consciously while I was trying to build the business, but I also realized there were points in time where I was unconsciously choosing it, and I had to pull back from that. So that would be the first thing. I want to be accountable to Jenny and my 6 children and be present in their lives first. Then I would say second would be my business partner, Nathan. I want to be accountable, responsible to him. I want to be in it with him. I want to care about him more than I care about anybody else. And I believe he would say the same thing. I haven't asked him. Maybe you call him and ask him for
Well,
me.
he's going to be on the podcast soon. We'll ask him there and get it broadcasted out to the world.
He said, somebody, yeah. And then our team. So I do see it in that hierarchical order. I'm accountable, responsible to Nathan first, our team second, and our clients third. And I do believe strongly that that is in our client's best interest. That if I'm caring about uh, my business partner and our team, will be a better business to our clients. And if I'm putting my focus on the clients first and then beating on the team to serve the clients a certain way, then it's that to me works for a while, but not in the long term. If I'm sincerely caring for my team, then I believe they'll sincerely care for our clients.
Yeah, and it's also I've heard it almost put in the context of like whiplash, where client demands are just having you go this direction today and a totally different direction the next day versus taking care of your literal family,
Mm-hmm.
Jenny and the kids, but then also your MKD family. It's like take care of them first, and like we'll figure out how to take care of the rest of the folks.
Mm-hmm.
Say a little bit more. You mentioned Mike Green, I think it was,
Mm-hmm.
at Cisco. But I think you shared just in some questions that we had invited you to consider beforehand, this gentleman, Jack Wilson. Who's Jack? Who's Jack?
Yeah,
And
Jack.
like, and who's Jack, and why did he end up as the person you named and being one of the most influential guides you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. No question, Jack Wilson is the most influential human on earth in my life, has been for sure. When I moved to Detroit back in, Super Bowl weekend 1997 is when I moved here. And there was one human being that I knew in Detroit, which is a common friend of ours, Preston, which is Jeff Borglund.
Did you
And
know him from the
in,
food service world?
no, Indiana University. We went to
Oh,
college.
yes.
Yeah. He ended up being fraternity roommates with my best friend from high school. So me and my best friend roomed together freshman year in the dorms. We went in two separate fraternities, and it was like we were both members of both fraternities. It was awesome. And Jeff and John Spicer were roommates, so I got to know Jeff. When I reached out to him, said, "Hey, I'm moving to Detroit." He introduced me to Kensington Community Church, which became an incredible community for me. It's how I ended up meeting my wife, Jenny, and just incredibly close, awesome friendships. And I had gotten involved at Kensington and was doing some various leadership things. One day I got a call from the church and they said, "Hey, there's this guy who is a PhD in psychology. He was one of the top guys at Oakland University, plus a professor, plus he has a side business doing performance enhancement coaching for athletes and CEOs, and he's volunteered every Tuesday to sit in an office at Kensington and meet with anybody who wants any type of life or leadership coaching." I just by nature am a person attracted to that. Like the first book I read out of college was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I won that by winning a cold call contest. That book changed my life dramatically. And I really was a pursuer of wisdom and help because I didn't grow up with any in Greenfield, Indiana. So I said, heck yes. I went, met with Jack, and we just instantly hit it off. There was I think, a special kinship there that turned into the father I never had, one of my best friends, mentor, uh, performance enhancement coach, marriage counselor. So when Jenny and I got married, he did our pre-marriage counseling, and then he met with us once a month for the first year of our marriage, which is the main reason that we're still married 26 years later. Yeah. The first year, they always tell couples when we do marriage mentoring is, yeah, the first year is the hardest for most people. But anyways, so Jack back then just had a huge impact on my life, filled a really big void in that I never had a father. and was just has become and grown into a very, very special person in my life that I met. It was early '98, so 27 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Natalie would say the first year was the easiest, and every year thereafter has been the hardest year. Um, but
I think you're responsible for that then. But I would tell you this, I've not only has Jack been, therapist, mentor, father, best friend, golf coach, performance, all this stuff, I have not made any major decision in my life without a lot of counsel from him. And there was a point in my life where, based on the trauma from my childhood and some difficulties in business early on, where I had become so overwhelmed with trying to figure out how to navigate life that I literally delegated my life to him. And I said, we're going to talk every morning and every night, and I'm going to run you through everything, and you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like I was so burdened with everything, and he took over. I delegated my life to him, and for probably a year, he made every decision for me and got me through the most difficult time of my life. And there's, what could be more incredibly impactful and special than that? And quite frankly, the most intelligent human that I've ever met or know, by far and away. Incredibly, insanely intelligent in many different ways.
What was the conversation like when, after that year of him basically, being your commanding officer and you just turn your brain off and do what he says? What was the conversation like with you guys to have him say, okay, you need to take the wheel back now?
Yeah. I think it just happened more kind of gradually over time as I started to get out of the weeds. There was a time in my life where we ended up having 6 kids in 9 years, where I was there was a rough patch in business. 5 to 7 years in, we're still making babies, and I was, because of all the stress and pressure from working home, the trauma that I had experienced as a child, which unfortunately there was a lot, was getting triggered, and so it was very difficult for me to just navigate life. But I also looked around and said, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for so much and I don't feel capable. I need help. Luckily I had Jack, and I said, hey, here's the deal. You're taking over, And then it just, I think as we got around a few corners and things just kind of naturally, but I still to this day, I mean, Jackson is mid-80s, and I talk to him, and I don't do anything without his input, anything major without his input and counsel.
Yeah, that's so great.
Mm-hmm.
It's so Joe, when we were chatting before we hit the record button, you were sharing about this conference that you and Nathan had attended recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the launch point. Sometimes I realize, I was sharing with you about myself headed to a few of them recently. And it's interesting when you get inside a room full of strangers, there's, at least for me, there's some fear, there's some trepidation, there's perhaps some self-doubt when you're walking into an environment in which there's some very successful people in the craft or in the industry for which that event is orchestrated. But I'm just curious, I'm going to bring it back to on the heels of that, and again, not specific to that particular event, but if you and Nathan kind of came out of that saying, there's a big opportunity for us. We had some insights that were maybe they were very tangible or tactical in nature. But I guess if I just simplify what I'm trying to say is what if there's a new call to adventure for you and for Nathan in your firm, what is it?
I think the new call to adventure for us coming out of the Family Wealth Alliance conference is realizing that what we've built is ready and we are capable. We say like I don't know what they take on a safari, whatever those, whatever vehicle they take, right? Everything's ready, right? We're ready for the adventure, and we're already there. Like I
And
said,
usually large caliber firearms too.
right? Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And the realization that we are already doing it, we're already there with some clients, and we're doing it as well or better than firms that are dramatically bigger than us. The call to adventure is to believe. It's purely a belief inside of us and a perception in the community of our target market that we're a viable option for their needs, so that we get more at bats with the people that we have evolved the firm to serve.
Yeah. What are some of the things, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to just kind of debrief, but what's an example of, so in other words, when you say you're ready, is it that you don't need to change anything? Or is it we're ready to take a big step that we either realize we've been postponing, or we realize, or it actually revealed itself?
Mm-hmm.
But either way, like what are you, Nathan, thinking of some of the biggest risks in terms of what's next for the firm?
Hmm. That's a great question. The biggest risk would be we have worked really hard over a long period of time to evolve the services of the firm to serve the unique needs of ultra high net worth entrepreneurs, and that we build it, that they wouldn't come. Now, in what we call our family office, we have 20 clients that we are serving with those services now. Our goal is to grow that from 20 to 50. And we're investing a lot of time and resources in upgrading how we look to the public so that hopefully those people will see us as a viable option and we'll get more at bats in that world. The risk is we put all that effort and all that time and all that money into that, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. When you were sharing about the belief, like the difference, and correct me if I'm off track, what you realized going there or coming back from that conference was like, it was really our belief, or some either a belief system or something that we believed in.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably the greatest. That was the hurdle, or that was the obstacle?
Yeah, well, the way I would describe it is going to the conference, knowing that MKD being just over $500 million, of assets that we manage for our clients, and knowing that we are, of the 80 firms, one of the smallest. And I mean, there's only two or three or four firms that are below $1 billion. There's a lot of firms between 2 billion and 10 billion, and then there's a handful of firms that are 150 billion to 300 billion, right? So we're in the small, on the bell curve, we're at the one small tail. There's big ones here, and then there's a lot between 2 and 10 billion. I thought I was going to go in and meet with other people over lunch and dinner, and while golfing, they had organized some golf. I thought I was going to be taking notes and going, oh my gosh, what do you do? What do you do? I thought I was going to learn so much that I was going to come back and apply and realize that we need to upgrade and do these things differently so that we can be like them. And I did not have that experience at all. I use the example of, I sat next to a guy at dinner one night who is a partner at a firm that's 170 billion. He has 20 families that equal 1.4 billion. So do the math, 70 million on average per family. And that's bigger than our biggest client, his average is. And we were comparing notes. We do more for our clients than they do. And the set of investments that we offer not only are similar, some of them are the exact same thing. And I'm realizing that We are, what we've built is ready for that. We could handle somebody with 50 million, 100 million, 150 million. And that was another example of that. I won't go through that whole example. I sat by somebody at lunch one day that was at a similar size firm and had a similar conversation that just opened my eyes up to, oh my gosh, we are very capable of and ready for those types of opportunities. We just have to upgrade our look. And they, at the conference, they called it demand pull, that more than ever in the ultra high net worth space, clients are finding firms. So when somebody in that space goes to look for somebody, or even if they get our name from somebody, when they come and visit our website or look at my LinkedIn, we better look like you belong here.
So maybe speaking as someone who runs a financial or wealth advisory practice, but maybe more just as an entrepreneur, Joe,
Mm-hmm.
what was the belief you've had to give up?
What's the belief I've had to give up?
In other words, an experience recently I've had is that I'm not ready. That's been a belief that, like, if there's usually that thought or that belief doesn't wake me up at night, it certainly keeps me up at night. So 2:30 in the morning, something to wake up, usually this crazy little dog we have. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't get back to sleep. I'm like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Can we actually do this?
Yeah, I
And
think
it's just,
yeah, it would be that firms bigger than us are doing something, there's some magic sauce or secret or thing that they're doing that we're not doing that we need to figure out and do so that we can get there. That'd be one thing. The other thing would be, there's kind of that weird belief of like, oh, they just woke up one day and they were 170 billion. No, they woke up one day, they were zero, right? A guy had a vision, started a business, and grew it over time to that level. Everybody started at some point, every business started at zero, started with nothing. Somebody started, no matter how big it is today, there was a point, and it had to hit some ceilings and break through some beliefs and have some big wins. And that's just where I think we're there now, where the next big hurdle for us would be to get to 1 billion, because that would be just more scale, more depth, more resource. And we're 500 million and 13 people in our world, in mass, in the independent world. That's pretty big and pretty good. But you get to higher levels and it just gets better and better. But the other thing is too, Nathan and I have talked about, we don't want 100 team members. We think we want maybe 25 to 30, somewhere where we could have an amazing business and a great experience, but keep the culture, keep the family feel, keep the dynamic that we have now. We don't want to get so big that we lose that.
Is that so? Any entrepreneur, they start their business and I'm sure they have doubts of, am I ready? Am I not ready? And is that a belief that, maybe you want to hold on to going forward, is I am ready no matter what going forward, because in my experience, I worked in film production for a number of years, and you start off as just a helping hand production assistant. You're setting up tables, you're setting up lunch for people, and then you kind of start to gravitate towards a department you want to go into. But you have no experience. 90% of these people have degrees in American history, not filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's no set qualification or measure really for anybody in that business. And so you have to make a decision if you want to take a step into camera department or wardrobe or, directing. It's like, I am ready. And maybe that's, I don't want to say lie, but maybe it's like not true from a purely objective standpoint, but, saying to yourself, I am ready no matter what, and just taking that leap, like you said.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's something that a lot of people don't want to forget, whether they're starting their business or in the middle of it or at the end of it.
Yeah. I've got the brain map where I think I'm always ready and capable of anything at any time, and I'll run into something and then wake up and go, "Oh shoot. I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't capable of this." That's normal for me. It's good for me now to have my business partner Nathan, who he's the opposite. He will spend a year figuring something out before he'll take a first step. I'll take 3 steps and then go, "Oh shoot, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm in trouble." But that's just the way I work. And a lot of times I take 3 steps and go, "Wow, this was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Let's take 3 more." So we are very different, and that was very difficult for us early on. Once we worked through that and got to a place where we now have a tremendous amount of trust and respect for each other and our differences. It's amazing and wonderful. Yeah, I've never suffered from being worried about being ready for something. I've always shoot first, and when I say ready, aim, fire, I'm like fire, fire, fire. Oh shoot, I should have aimed at something. you know.
So Joe, how do you measure success today?
Hmm. Wow, that's a great question. The quick, easy answer is, we run our business on an operating system, and we have 10-year, 3-year, 1-year quarterly goals. Obviously you understand all that incredibly well, and we're constantly holding ourselves accountable to weekly to-dos, to roll up to our quarterly rocks, to hit our, blah, 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 right? But I think that stuff's awesome and cool and fun to, be able to have something, a target to shoot at. For me personally, I measure success more around internal freedom and the extent to which I've dealt with and healed my childhood trauma, and the extent to which I bring healing and freedom into relationships. That when I walk into a room and sit with somebody, there's more psychological air so that people can be more safe and vulnerable, feel more free. I believe that you heal the world by healing yourself. And if everybody took the time to become aware of the hurt, the pain, the anxiety, the depression, the PTSD, whatever you call it, that's in your soul, and you go through a journey of healing, which that journey is for the rest of your life. I realize I'm not going to wake up one day and be completely healed and free. Maybe I will, who knows, but fall down and hit my head on a rock and look up and be enlightened. But I think for the most part, it's going to be until the day I die. But the more freedom I can bring to the world because there's more freedom in my soul, then that's how I measure success. And that's, I believe, for my family, obviously for my relationship with Nathan, my team, my clients, my friends, the South Oakland Citizens for the Homeless, the nonprofit board I serve on, all those things, committees at clubs that I'm involved in, everything, everywhere I go, I want to bring freedom.
And you may have already answered this by what you just said, but is the journey of bringing that healing and comfort into the world the success part or the more important part, or is the actual obtainable, like tangible, we help this many people today part?
That the freedom part. Yeah. When I'm taking my last breaths, the things I'll be much more in tune to the love and the freedom and the healing that I brought than the number of new clients we landed, or the dollars of assets in my investment accounts or whatever. It's like, yeah, that's great. High five. You worked hard. And don't get me wrong, I'm a competitive person. by nature, and that stuff matters, and I'm glad to have a team and to rally around a goal, but the other stuff's more important. Absolutely. There's a quote by Dietrich Bonhoeffer that I read probably 15 years ago that really changed my perspective on this. And his quote is, "He who loves community kills community. He who loves the brethren creates community." And I realized back then I had a vision of having a certain company that functioned a certain way and acted a certain way, and I loved community, and I needed everybody in the community to play their role so we could have the community, which I thought was awesome, but it was all me, right? And I realize now that if you want to have a community, if you want to have a loving family, then love each person. If you want to have a group, a team, our 13 people here, if we want them to love working here and to want to be here and to do a great job, then just love each one of them individually. Love them where they're at, be with them, help them, be available to them.
That is such great advice. And you may have actually just answered the last question I wanted to ask Joe, is just in terms of if there's, a bit of wisdom that you've gleaned along the way that you'd want to share with other entrepreneurs who listen in on this. But I bring it back to, again, the concept of subsidiarity, where like in our faith life, there's a Catholic Church, I think, kind of revealed this, didn't necessarily come up with it, but like I interpret it as you place decision making down at the lowest level possible at which the impact of decisions are most closely or acutely felt. And I love what you said, because if you literally did take care of that one person today and that one person tomorrow and then a third person the next day, you're actually actively forming community all of those days.
Yep.
And like how frequently, and when you shared that, I realized how I strive sometimes, and perhaps based on what you just shared, maybe a little bit misguided, is thinking like, oh, there's this big, great thing, and I'm involved in a number of different groups, and we're building a company, and we need to get the whole healthy, versus no, let's make sure each part is first.
Yeah. Yeah. The key to the many is the one. And I don't remember off the top of my head who said that, but somebody did, not me. That's not my original quote. And from the Holy Scriptures, you think about Jesus, if one sheep were to run away, would you not go find him? He tells the parable of that the key to the many is the one, and that's how he cares about us, is individually, not as a group, but each one of us personally.
Yeah, except maybe if the one sheep is the crazy cat lady that lives down the street. So just saying.
Yep. Weirdly, he loves her just as much as he loves you, Preston.
Right.
It's hard to reconcile. Yeah. Or my neighbor who hates us because we vote differently than her.
That's a whole nother podcast right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap things up. Joe, thank you so much for being a part of this and coming on and sharing your story. I know I learned a lot and got some really great insight into being able to, let's say, see your future from those around you. I think that was a really great lesson. Where can people find your company? Where can people get in touch with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. Our website is mkdwealth.com. So M like Michael, Kevin, David, mkdwealth.com. My email is joe@mkdwealth.com. And those are the two easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Joe, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
A treat.
I really appreciate you inviting me on the podcast and letting me be a part of this community.